Hello everyone, SlayerCoon here. The gaming community lies on a spectrum. On one hand, you have casual gamers, people who are more into GTA or first-person shooters, or even a certain game that shall not be named. And then you have hardcore gamers, fans of nerdier and more difficult games. I personally fall somewhere in between. On one hand, I like screwing around in more sandbox-oriented games, but I'm also a massive fan of platformer games. But what would happen if you took mild elements of both genres while adding its own unique spin to video games as a whole? You'd get Night in the Woods. Released in early 2017, Night in the Woods is a game that blew me away. It was pretty much everything I was looking for in a video game at the time. Or in other words, a game that was different. I'm not a big fan of the big budget shooter games or sports games that flood the market, and even other indie games, while really good, didn't have that thing I was looking for. But here comes Night in the Woods, something completely different. A game that, dare I say, is more than just a game. This game is heavily story-based, but because I don't want to spoil it for potential future players, I'll keep it short. The game starts out with May, a recent college dropout, returning to her hometown of Possum Springs. Right from the start, the game presents itself differently than most games of this era. It's a more laid-back and socially relatable game that, despite its looks, has a very realistic feel to it. There's no real audible dialogue in this game, as the game's story and narrative are presented through text boxes much like a comic book. Something I really love, since it not only prevents the possibility of bad voice acting, but manages to be more believable than most actual voice acting from modern games. You make your way home in a rather dangerous manner, leading to you being picked up by a police officer. Once you arrive home is when the game really begins. An adventure of social interactivity in your average American town. While the game isn't exactly a sandbox, the entire game world consists of a couple city blocks, and there are areas that can only be accessed during certain parts of the game. It is a very well-crafted world, and that's only amplified by the game's unique art style. It has an art style that is rather similar to a children's book, the lack of outlines and cute furry animals in place of humans, but it has its own dark and unique spin on it that somehow manages to make the social interactions within the game feel more relatable. And this game simply looks fantastic, with its use of both warm and cool colors. I'd go as far as saying it's one of the best looking games ever made. This game's unique spin on gameplay consists of everyday social interactivities with your friends, such as going to the mall, playing in a garage band, or even shoplifting. Hopefully they aren't shoplifting used copies of Super Bubble Pop. They may not be the most realistic of activities, but they are definitely highly relatable to late teens and early adults like me, and aren't far off from what I do with my friends. And the other main characters in the game are some of the best and most relatable in an indie game, consisting of Bee, Greg, and Angus. Angus. These are more than just characters to me. I could have sworn while playing that I actually became best friends with these characters in real life, and even the minor background characters feel as if though they have a purpose behind them, and this game world really hits where it hurts. Despite how beautiful the town is, you can tell the citizens are drained of life, as is the player, something I can relate with on a personal level considering how boring the city I live in is. Although Possum Springs is far from a boring town, even the citizens want to nuke it. And that's not to mention this game's stellar soundtrack. It's one of the most unique soundtracks of any game released this decade. It's mostly subdued and relaxed, adding to the laid-back atmosphere of the game. It's clearly mostly influenced by indie music, and while I'm more of a metal guy, I really love the music in this game, and have even used it as background music in a lot of my videos. However, it is also rather diverse at times, such as the Sega Genesis-inspired music of the Demon Tower minigame, or Witch Dagger. One of the few metal-inspired tunes in the game, and probably my favorite piece from the soundtrack. Plus there are rhythm game sections too, which are reminiscent of Guitar Hero but not quite as good. I could definitely do without these sections, but even then, they aren't bad. And then of course, there's the aforementioned Demon Tower, a retro throwback to the 16-bit era of gaming that's really challenging and fun, although May is clearly emulating it like the fake gamer she is. Real gamers pay hundreds of dollars for an expensive physical copy, and if that wasn't enough for you, there are also these trippy psychedelic dream sections. They are truly like an out-of-this-world experience and are easily the most graphically impressive portions of the game. It's just something that's really relaxing and wholesome after nearly getting electrocuted to death. And boy am I proud to be a citizen of Kilburg. However, despite how fantastic this game is, it isn't exactly perfect. For one, there is only one save slot, which is a pretty big problem for someone who does game reviews like me. Back in my Gran Turismo 2 review, I actually used 2 different save files, one for early game footage and 2 for content found later in the game. I know that gaming has changed and people usually don't have multiple family members playing the same game on different save files, but the exclusion of multiple save files was a pretty idiotic decision. On a lesser note, some of the dialogue can drag on for too long, but that's only a problem if you're a more casual gamer. Otherwise, this was my favorite game of 2017 by far. And yes, this game is better than Cuphead in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, Cuphead is a fantastic game and deserved the attention it got, but sometimes the gameplay was a bit repetitive and, dare I say, the difficulty felt like a gimmick at times. Cuphead was great, but I don't like how it overshadowed Night in the Woods. Night in the Woods simply has more to do, a better atmosphere, memorable characters, and a unique art style in a world of its own. This game is one of the best indie games of all time, and I'll always enjoy coming back to it. To anyone who's watching, I'd highly encourage you buy this game. Whether it's on the PC, PS4, or Nintendo Switch, this is a true work of art that no one should miss out on. 9 out of 10.